Reading? Psh, I'm too illiterate to stare at a bunch of words for an hour and use my imagination, but throw in some pictures and all of a sudden you got my attention. I have read a ton of mangas over the years, some of which were really good, some were bad, and some, well, the panel speaks for itself. There comes a point in time in every person who watches anime who becomes interested in the original source, whether that be to pick up where an anime left off, seeing how much a series stayed true to the manga, or to see how bad an anime is when compared to its manga. Tokyo Ghoul, Berserk, and Kingdom compare the manga to its anime adaptation in this night and day.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
In this video, I've read a ton of mangas and found some that I think you should read. To not waste your time, I left timestamps and ratings of each manga I talk about in the description. So if you're uninterested in a manga, just skip it and go on to the next. And if you've read all of it, well, I don't know what you want me to say. Touch grass, maybe? The Hunter's Guild Red Hood is a short-lived manga series by YUUKI KAWAGUCHI, which ran from June 28th through November 28th, 2021, totaling 3 volumes. The main protagonist of this story is Velo and Grim. Grim is a hunter who works for the Hunter's Guild and is known for her appearance as she wears a red hood, whilst Velo is your typical innocent boy who doesn't really grasp how dangerous the world can be. In this world, mythical creatures exist, and werewolves are the main cause of problem. They wreak havoc on humans and are known for destroying homes. Kasako Village, the village Velo lives at, are facing a problem where people have been dying due to a werewolf. The way things stand, they have no choice but to rely on a hunter to come and exterminate the said wolf. The mayor decides to sell literally everything, and when I say everything, I mean everything. The guy literally becomes homeless, but at the cost of saving his village. This is when we're introduced to Grims, a hunter from the Hunter's Guild. Velo shows Grim around the town when they suddenly hear the mayor's scream go off. They both rush to the hamlet and find an elderly woman, but the mayor is gone. The old lady in the hamlet tries to disguise herself as a regular human and claims that the mayor is the werewolf. In disguise, the lady transforms into a werewolf, and now Velo and Grim decide to team up to take her on despite his small stature. Velo proves he's an asset and affirms his conviction to carry on the mayor's desire to protect everyone. The fight scenes in this manga are really well drawn, from the introductions of characters to the hunter's exam, and the battles between Grim and Velo versus a werewolf. This series largely revolves around Grim and Velo working at the Hunter's Guild, and the first chapter does a perfect job at delivering on that premise. The Hunter's Guild Red Hood was cancelled due to low sales, but the story is unique and action-packed and takes a different approach on old tales. It's a short and exciting read, and it's something you can honestly finish in one sitting. Kabushiki is a manga that takes the idea of superheroes and magical girls and takes it to another level. It's a new twist on the magical girl genre, being adapted to fit our modern world aesthetics by mixing the story in with the cruel side of corporatism. In their universe, being a magical girl is an actual profession and is seen as almost a 9 to 5. Within their verse, there are numerous amounts of companies that hires witches to take on jobs to suppress monsters and rescue civilians. The story follows 2 characters, Koshigaya Hitomi, and the main protagonist the story revolves around, Sakuragi Kana. Kana is a recent college graduate with excellent photogenic memories. In the beginning, we see her go to countless job interviews, all in which we see her failing to get hired. On her last interview, the office she's at gets attacked by a monster, but she then meets Hitomi. When she gets there, the monster is a lot bigger than she expected and is required to have 2 people to exterminate it. With no time remaining to wait for backup, she calls anybody for help when Kana raises her hand and takes on the challenge of helping her with the extermination. Throughout the first chapter, we see Hana's intelligence shine at its best, and her quick thinking and decision making are keen when it comes to killing the monster. The art style is surprisingly really well done, and there's a lot of depth and detail when it comes to important panels. I found this manga to be unique, and the concept was refreshing. It's kinda hard to make this seem compelling, and my synopsis doesn't really give it enough justice, I would say. It's a fairly short read. Give it 5 chapters, and if you're still not feeling it, it might not be for you. of boxing mangas out there, a lot of which you've probably seen or read. Hajime no Ippo, Ashita no Joe, Triple R are all mangas that include the concept of boxing. But to me, RIKUDOU got to be the best manga out of the bunch and the most I found enjoyment out of, not just from a visual standpoint, but the overall journey and story. I'll give you a little scenario. Imagine you are a debt collector and your boss told you to go to this person's house and get the money they owe you back. Now this house is a house you've been to countless amount of times. You arrive at this house and bang on the door, but to no surprise, there's no answer. You know someone is in there because there's a faint banging noise getting louder and louder. Now you kick open the door and head towards the sound, and in that situation, what would you expect that sound to be coming from? Is it A, a TV, B, a kid and his father arguing, or C, some kind of toy in the background? If you picked any of these options, you are wrong, because the answer to this question is neither. The sound was coming from a boy punching his dead father repeatedly as if he's a punching bag. Yeah, I bet you wasn't expecting that, huh? The entire time this is happening, the boy and the guy are just having a regular conversation as if this scene is completely normal. Hey, what are you doing? The same as usual. I found my dad this way when I came back from school. You might be wondering, why would he be doing this? The boy responds with, for all the time before this has happened, let's see if I can pay you back. Now, stay with me because it isn't over yet. How do you think the guy responds to this? Don't worry, I'll give you a few seconds to think about this. Got an answer? Good. He punches the boy in the face and says this is how you throw a punch, and proceeds to give him a lesson on how to throw a jab. You literally cannot be making this up. This is a manga that follows the story of a boy named RIKUDOU. It takes a more dark and edgy approach when compared to other series, and from the very first chapter, it hooks you in. He lives in a very low income household. His parents are either drug addicts or have a large sum of debt, and are also extremely abusive towards him. Kyosuke is RIKUDOU's mentor and was a professional boxer in the past. He was so good, in fact, he used to be a world champion. He gets picked up by his mother, and we learned this entire time he wanted to live with her, but was afraid of doing anything since he didn't want it to be a nuisance. Eventually, they end up going to her place, where they're greeted by this guy. He's also an addict who supplies RIKUDOU's mother with said drugs. We watch his mom lose to her craving and do unimaginable things in front of her son to get an ounce of the drug. RIKUDOU couldn't bear to see this, so he tells the guy to stop. This guy quite literally trucks him and proceeds to physically abuse him. The kid he is realizes the true extent of the danger he is in and is afraid he is going to be killed. And in the last moments, when this guy is rushing him, he remembers what his mentor taught him. He clenches his fist and throws his very first jab, hitting the guy in a vital spot and immobilizing him. He then picks up an ashtray and bashes his head in, killing the man on the spot. RIKUDOU is a manga where we see how this boy becomes a boxer. The jab is the only thing he has, and his past is the reason why he became a boxer. The powerlessness he felt as a child is his motivation in and out of the ring to become stronger. In many ways, this is a story about a broken kid trying to overcome his past through professional boxing. At the time of this recording, there are currently 189 chapters. If you need to see a manga with captivating panels and an interesting plot, then I think you should give this manga a shot. Given the nature of the story, this manga may make you feel uncomfortable at times, but if you are able to read things like this, you will probably find this series enjoyable, just as I have. Shounen no Abyss is a manga that makes you uncomfortable the longer you read. There are multiple ways to see the story of this manga. Boys Abyss follows really multiple characters, mainly Reiji Kurose. Every character in this series has a story of their own. The main character and the supporting cast have something that really makes the reader hook onto them. Characters are all realistic as hell. Not realistic as in things they do, but realistic based on what has happened in their past. Rei is second in charge of taking care of his entire family, the first being his mother. At the beginning of the story, Reggie drops everything, his future, his goals, love, and school in hopes of finding a real job. The reason for this is so that he can help his mother and take off some of the burden she faces in taking care of all of them. As this story progresses, he runs into various characters and slowly begins to gain a bit of life and seek an enjoyable future. Later on, he meets this idol who happens to work at the convenience store he frequently visits. She then offers him if they would like to die together and dwells upon this thought for various days. He eventually agrees to this offer to escape his lifestyle and to start anew, but there are massive barriers and things from stopping him. The story takes place in a rural country town, and a common trait about every character in this series is their obsession of wanting to leave the town. Every character has a reason in the story, and as you read the series, you're always on the edge of your seat. The art in this series is flawless. There's really no arguments or complaints made against this. The artist masterfully adds a whole other layer of emotions with the way they depict the characters in their art. It's a really interesting story, and it's something I would highly recommend. If you are going to read this though, be sure to know that this manga covers some pretty sensitive topics, and some of the characters have extremely suicidal thoughts. So go into it with this in mind. Serial killer incidents have been taking place again with the similar methods as 15 years ago. Insecurity rises among citizens as they fear L, an infamous serial killer who has seemed to return. My Dearest Self is a murder mystery wherein the main protagonist is actually chasing himself. The main protagonist of the story follows Eiji Urashima. He is haunted by a dark past and is the son of a massive serial killer. Because of this, Eiji's early adolescence were harsh, to say the least. For the most part, he has been able to live a normal life when one day he starts experiencing time skips. On the 23rd of October, he heads to bed the same as usual and wakes up the next day thinking it's the 24th, when everything is out of the ordinary. He wakes up with a girl in his bed, the campus bully is bowing his head to him, and he has bruises on his hands that he doesn't remember how it got there. To make this even weirder, a random girl walks up to him, dressed in an old-fashioned attire, and just stares at him for a good minute, until she abruptly says, "Good, you're not the other Eiji," and just walks away. He then meets his friend and asks him, "Isn't it the 24th? But to his surprise, he responds with, "No, it's the 27th. The reason for him forgetting everything is due to him having split personality. On one side, he's this normal teenage boy who's trying to get his first girlfriend, and on the other side, he's this dark and gruesome individual whose main purpose is to follow in his father's footsteps." The last thing I want to talk about is the art in this manga. The art in this manga is really good. There are multiple panels that will leave you staring at the same picture for ages. The shading and detailing is unparalleled, and the art style has a sharp visual style that captures both the horror and beauty of this series. It's a manga that has already finished, and there is so much more I want to say about this manga, but it's one of those reads that is best to experience yourself and to go into a little blind. Cigarettes and Cherry is a manga I read quite a while ago, but man is it good. It's one of the few series that makes me feel completely invested when I read it, and that is represented by the strong bonds that is created with each character. The story follows a kid who just made it to college, and his main goal is to get a girlfriend. In the first chapter, we see him spot a girl who is smoking, and he decides to approach her. He comes up with this plan to act like he smokes as well, and asks her for a lighter. To the guy, he visualized and practiced this moment way before he even reached college, for the sole purpose of impressing his old friends back home. When he tries to light the cigarette, it isn't lighting. When the girl grabs a cigarette and tells him it's the wrong end. Trying to cover up his inexperience, she stops him and calls him a cherry boy. And from that moment, the main protagonist made a promise that he wouldn't give up and vowed to himself he was going to make her fall in love with him. Seeing the various attempts he tries to get her attention is really funny. Throughout the series, he tries to be more forward after watching something on TV when a condom falls out of his pants. He tries physical contact and even invites her to watch a movie. The story is extremely wholesome, and we watch how the two of them develop. The kid becomes more mature and it's satisfying to see the way he changes over time. I like the MC of this series for various reasons. He doesn't have a lot of experience, but nonetheless, he still pushes himself and tries, unlike a lot of other manga protagonists. He isn't a coward, and I can respect someone like this. I highly recommend you give this manga a shot. My synopsis doesn't give it the credit it deserves, and out of all the mangas I recommended, I vouch for this one the most when it comes to a casual read. This manga is an acquired taste. No, that doesn't sound right. I would say it's more cursed than anything.
What the fuck was that?
The creator of this abysmal manga is a man who goes by the name of Hiromoto Akira. Sound familiar? Well, if it wasn't apparent by the art style or the name, let me give you a hint. It's made by the same guy who made this. Humans are mutating, causing a disturbance in society. There are humans with special abilities who are seen as heroes and villains. Those who use these abilities for the wellness of society are held as heroes, and those who use their abilities to oppose the law are viewed as villains. There is a war going on between the police secret agency, known as the JMT, and SALF, a known group that causes disturbance among the highest societies. The main protagonist of the series is a man named Chiaki Miura. Miura is jobless and has been searching for a job for ages. A job is something he desperately needs. You see, he has no parents and is tasked with taking care of his 2 siblings. Randomly one day, when he's on the train to head to an interview, a certain incident happens and he steps in to stop this. As a result of this, he ends up missing his job interview but gets the opportunity to earn money. A JMT officer offers him a job to be a spy under his organization, and the very next day, he has an interview ready. All he had to do was grab the briefcase out of the locker, and all the instructions will be included about this job, including a disguise. I don't want to go in depth as to what happens in the interview, because I think it would be best to go into it blind. But all of the side characters in the show all play a part in the main story, and there are some pretty funny interactions between the side character and the main character. Would I recommend this manga? Honestly, no, but I'm still going to include it in the video. If you decide to read it, just know I did warn you beforehand. This manga is very straightforward. Juujika no Rokunin. Juujika no Rokunin. Hold up. Juujika no Rokunin. Juujika no Rokunin is about one character, and one character only, Uruma Shun, and his journey of getting revenge. Shun, at the start of the story, is a 6th grade student that was named as an experimental body by 5 of his classmates. These 5 classmates severely bullies him and make his life a living hell. Shun's only peace was his brother who loved him and his parents who protected him. These kids decided to kill his only pet he had. This was a breaking point for Shun, but he has been keeping a front to both his brother and his parents. But due to his cat passing, he was unable to control himself and finally admits to his family all the bullying and abuse he's been experiencing. Because of this, they decide to move and transfer him to a new school. For a little while, this seemed to work until they spotted him at a convenience store and began the same bullying as they previously did before. As a punishment for moving, the 5 kids decided to group up and kill both his parents as well as severely injuring his little brother. Determined for revenge, the MC asks his grandfather, who used to be an ex-Kitayama corpse. This squadron used to be a secret service that was established during the Second War, and during his grandfather's time, he killed countless amount of people. He agrees to train him and help him reach his goal of revenge. 4 years later, after all of this happens, Shun comes back to take his revenge, killing all the people who did him wrong one by one in the most brutal way possible. The art style in this manga is really good. The dark atmosphere and the use of shading sets the tone and vibe for what it's going for. I do have to say, if you're going to read this, be sure to know this manga shows a lot of gruesome things, so read it at your own risk. This is probably a series you've seen or heard of prior to watching this video. A lot of people would drop this series because of its art style, and that's a damn shame, because you're missing out on an amazing manga. Martial Magic is about a kid with no supernatural abilities or powers, trying to blend into a world where magic is the be-all end-all. Everything in their society functions with the use of magic. The plot and overall aesthetic of this manga can be summed up with two series: One Punch Man and Harry Potter. You've got an OP protagonist similar to Saitama, and a premise like Black Clover, where the MC has no magical powers at all, but trains hard to compensate for his lack of magic. Every single encounter he faces and challenges he runs into is solved using brute force. I've seen this guy body slam, punch, kick, you name it, to get past challenges. Can't fly with a broom due to having zero magic? Why not throw it across a room and jump on it? I found this series to be really funny, and it's something you should give a shot. It also got announced that it's getting an anime adaptation for April 2023, so that should say a lot about this series. I originally planned to make this a 9 manga recommendation video. I mean, my script only went up to 9 mangas, but I felt like 9 was kind of an odd number to stop at. So, for the sake of the title, and not dragging this video any longer, read Hell's Paradise, and thank me later. Oh, and it's also getting an anime adaptation.
I felt kinda sad. Somebody told me